Hello everyone, and welcome to the Governance Committee on Thursday the 15th of January. We'll start with declarations of interest. Have I got any? No, great. Moving to the minutes of the previous meeting. Are there any comments on the minutes of the previous meeting? No?
Proposal.
Thank you, Councillor Mumford. Second by Councillor Legg. All those in favour? That's great, that's unanimous. So moving on to part one, standing orders. Leah, I think it's over to you.
Good afternoon, members. So I'm bringing to you today a report on the council's standing orders. On the 16th of September last year, full council considered an item in relation to the employee travel and accommodation expenses and matters relating to the chief executive's travel and accommodation expenses. And one of the decisions that full council made was that I bring updated standing orders back to full council. Apologies, slight delay, should have been before the end of 2025. We're now mid-Jan. The purpose of the review and amendments to the standing orders was to make sure that there are clear procedures in place for decision making in respect of both day-to-day HR matters pertaining to the chief executive and those matters determined by the head of human resources as not to be day-to-day. I think one of the issues for the Council of the Isles of Scilly is that it's got a unique governance structure, and for most of its matters it runs as though it's a committee structure. The majority of local authorities run an executive model where the leader has individual decision-making capability, and so in the vast majority of councils, chief executives' day-to-day HR matters are dealt with by the leader. Obviously, that's not something open to this council. So what I've sought to do is to, in the standing orders, make some amendments, which is shown in Appendix 1 to the report by way of track changes, which deals with the head of human resources dealing with what I refer to as day-to-day human resource matters. So that's the natural dictionary meaning, so those regular things that happen day to day in terms of HR, so general requests for leave, a variety of matters. It could be a request for an I-voucher under the council's policy, etc. Where the head of HR, in consultation with a senior officer, that's not the chief executive officer, can determine those matters on a day-to-day basis, but those matters where the head of HR feels it's not regular, it's not day-to-day, the procedure is that a panel of 5 members of the council be set up in order to consider and make a decision in respect of those matters. I do set out in the report that there are already procedures within standing orders for disciplinary matters and dismissal, and they're already covered in orders 39 and 40. So my proposals add an additional standing order, standing order 41, to deal with this particular issue. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Leah. Anyone got any questions?
Just to say, it all seems pretty sensible to me, really. So I'm happy to propose.
Okay.
Yeah, just a quick question on the kind of definitions of day-to-day and not day-to-day, and who makes the decision of when it's not considered a day-to-day matter and therefore needs appointment of members to this panel of 5. Just a bit more clarity on that and how that panel would be set up.
Yep, so in terms of a definition, there is no definition. So I did consider a definition, but I think it's particularly hard to do that. So I've left that at the determination of the head of HR, who I feel is best placed to determine whether something is day-to-day or not. So, for example, in the particular case we had back in September, the head of HR did not feel it was a day-to-day matter, but what complicated it in that particular scenario was a bespoke delegation that full council had made to the head of HR. So I think this gives some clarity in that respect. So where the head of HR is just thinking, this is not regular, this is not a day-to-day issue, it might be something that is on the cusp of policy where you could determine it to fall within or within policy, but it's an unusual request, so an unusual leave request, request uh, to have an extended period where they might be remotely working, for example, abroad. We have a plethora of HR requests that come in. Those types of irregular things where the head of HR is feeling a little bit uncomfortable, she would consult with a senior manager who is not the chief executive, take advice as required, as set out in the standing order from the monitoring officer and the deputy section 151 officer, and then seek to set a panel of 5 members up. In terms of setting a panel of 5 members up, I think that could be done relatively straightforwardly, as it is under standing orders 39 and 40. I mean, fortunately, we've not been in the position where we've had to set up a panel to deal with a matter under standing order 39 in terms of dismissal or disciplinary, but we certainly have in terms of appointments. It would be set up in a similar way.
That panel can be set up quite informally. It doesn't need a proposal that's full council, or does it need to be, can it be done via email?
Yeah, I feel it could be done informally.
Okay.
Well, just could we specify that, just to save confusion later on, just made up from members of council, if that's what it is? It's only because at some point down the line, when we'll vote people on it, and it's, it's silly.
Yep, I can make an amendment. So what I'll do is, if it's okay with members, this does go to the full council at the end of this month, is I'll take that feedback back from this committee in terms of making that expressly clear in the standing order and make an amendment for full council to consider at its meeting on the 27th.
Are we happy with that? Yeah, I think so. Okay, cool. So I've got a proposer from Councillor Sims, seconder Councillor Legg, including that amendment. All those in favour? That's
Can I just ask one more question?
Yeah, sure.
This is going to seem silly, but it's very specific that a senior officer, but not the CEO, will be consulted. I mean, imagine there will be instances of sufficient gravity where the CEO probably will need to be consulted, and this says he can't be. You know what I mean?
No, yeah, I do know what you mean, Councillor Sims, but he specifically, I mean, in this case, he, but the chief executive is explicitly excluded because it's only matters pertaining to the chief executive that standing order deals with. So it's to deal with that conflict of interest.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Cool. Okay.
Sorry, can I just clarify something else? So, in consultation with a senior officer,
Yeah.
as I suppose I need a definition for a senior officer who isn't the chief executive. So is that?
Yeah. So.
Yeah. So, do we need a list of roles or that are appropriate?
Sorry, I didn't know. There's delay. I don't know why. Sorry if it sounds like I'm cutting in. It's coming through a bit echoey from my end. In terms of senior manager, that's defined at the beginning of standing orders. So it means the chief executive and the council's directors or their nominee. So it's limited to that level of officer. So that's why I've specifically in my revised standing order 41 explicitly excluded the chief executive to make it clear that it's only those other directors who could be consulted.
Okay, you're right. Okay, I think we're happy with that one. Thank you, Leah. We're going to move on to agenda item 4. Local Government and Social Care Ombudsman, annual review letter.
Thank you, members. So this is, as by the title, an annual matter that comes before members. Previously used to come to scrutiny committee, but when we revised our standing orders up for council in May, that function and the function of audit was changed to governance committee, which is why it's coming before governance committee. So I set out in my report that each year the LGSCO issues an annual review letter to each organisation within its remit, and it includes some annual statistics relating to complaints handled. It's backwards looking, so in respect of the period 1st of April 24 to the 31st of March 25, the LGSCO investigated and dealt with 3 complaints in relation to the Council of the Isles of Scilly and upheld none of those complaints. So I then put some context for members in paragraph 4 of my report. In respect of the complaints, they all related to the post-16 travel and accommodation matter. 2 of those complaints were ended due to the commencement of the court proceedings. One of those did continue once the court proceedings had concluded by way of consent order, and that was investigated and the complaint not upheld. And yep, that is it. I think I just set out there for members just to make clear which parts of the terms of reference of the committee this falls within. Happy to take any questions.
Any members got any questions on that? No, it's all looking straightforward here. So we have a recommendation to note. Yes, Councillor Sims is proposing, Councillor Mumford is seconding. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. Agenda item 5, internal audits. So Jason, I think it's over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. So we're bringing to you today our regular progress report, which basically highlights where we are with the plan as previously agreed with members. I'm joined by my colleague, Chris Chandler today, who undertakes the majority of the work for your council. So what we're going to do is just give you a brief overview of the 3 pieces of work that are either in train or completed, as highlighted within the progress report. And then what I'll do after Chris has given a brief overview of that is I'll talk a little bit about some of the tweaks to the audit plan that we would like members to agree to today, please. So Chair, if it's okay, I would like to hand over to Chris.
Please.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Jason. So we've issued 2 final reports in the last week, both of which have sort of received feedback and incorporated the comments of Russell. The first one being cyber. That's one of reasonable assurance. We're focusing here on the arrangements for cyber security, which are largely provided by the framework and service level agreement with Cornwall Council. So here we leverage the internal audit work, which we do with an external specialist provider to provide assurance across the framework for Cornwall Council, CoreServe and the Isles of Scilly. So we leverage that and basically use the findings from those other reports to provide this overall level of reasonable assurance. Our external providers, Prism.RA, are a highly specialist firm of security consultants, have a good level of expertise, and they've seen continued improvement in the way that the council has implemented a cybersecurity framework over the last few years. We're implementing various national standards, and it's those that would give us increased assurance that the cyber arrangements are at least reasonable. However, that's not to say that anyone can be complacent, because clearly you can have most fantastic cybersecurity arrangements technically, but you only need that one exposure from that one person who's potentially the weakest point of failure, who clicks on that email, as we all know, with a spurious link in it. So that's why it's reasonable with a caveat. Any questions on the cyber report, please?
Chris, I was just going to ask about training for members, and just that last sentence, basically, designated officer with IT skills and training for officers and members.
Yeah, we included 2 findings in this report. The first one relates to the skills element for officers, and that's, as we've discussed in pre-meeting, largely because Tom Walton obviously was in post previously, and he provided that level of expertise, or at least had some knowledge that he was able to provide the coordination between the Council's of the Isles of Scilly and Cornwall Council's cyber team. So Leah has updated us that the post is now advertised with applications due the 23rd of January. So obviously something to take into account during the interviewing process will be is whether there's a potential replacement that has some IT expertise or knowledge that can act as the conduit between the Isles of Scilly and Cornwall. So that's on the skills side. On the member training side, we sort of recognise that there's an opportunity for some members to potentially have greater awareness. This could be through mandatory training. It could be through myself, one of my colleagues, providing sort of a combined risk and cyber assurance training session, or it could be through some sort of other means, such as online training. So those sort of training needs need to be sort of worked on and agreed with the council. So those are the 2 points.
Thank you, Chris. There's no any questions in the room about that? No, that's fine, Chris. Thank you.
Okay, then I'll move on to the risk report. This again is one of reasonable assurance. So the Isles of Scilly has continued to develop the risk management framework over the last 2 to 3 years. We've seen improvements as this is part of a regular review. The risk register in particular in the last quarter has been significantly updated. It's been stripped back to actually what is the key risk, what are the mitigating actions for that risk, and what are the next steps. So it's that sort of risk management framework which is so important. There is some further work with an opportunity to develop it into sort of links with some operational risk more at the directorate departmental level. So we're looking for sort of further enhancements over the next year or 2, which provides that top-down and bottom-up coverage of risk management. And so that's the basic. That's sort of the basis of the 2 findings that we have.
Is there any questions?
So any questions?
No, I think members are fine here, Chris. Thank you very much.
Okay, then I'm going to hand back to Jason, who's going to go through the updates to the plan.
Bear with me, Councillor Sims.
Yeah, no, it's only, I didn't realise you were about to finish. It's just on page 3 of the report. There's a number of items, NHS integration and financial systems, which have got a strike through on them.
We're going to, Jason's going to update us about that.
That's absolutely fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris.
Okay.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so moving on to paragraph number 5 of our report, revised internal audit plan 25-26. This plan, our internal audit plan, was approved by the scrutiny committee back in March 2025. But obviously the plan needs to be flexible and respond to the needs and the changing assurance requirements of the council. So with that in mind, I had a meeting with the chair of this committee, Councillor Marcus, and the chief executive a couple of weeks ago, just to make sure that we were happy with the plan. And there were a couple of suggestions for changes which are highlighted in this report. So that's what I would like members to consider and to approve at this meeting, please. I'll run through those now. The first one is in relation to NHS integration, which was originally planned to be undertaken in this financial year. However, Councillor Marcus and the Chief Executive would like this deferred to next year's internal audit plan, recognising the timing of the new care facility project on St Mary's and the overall completion of that project. The second change is in relation to financial systems, whereby we would normally have one line in our audit plan each year for financial systems, looking at the core financial assurance arrangements of the council. It was recommended again by Councillor Marcus and by the Chief Executive that perhaps that work now needs to be a little bit more focused, rather than looking at high level financial controls. It's digging down into the deeper weeds, if you like, looking at specific areas, and those two specific areas are budget management and rent collection, where we feel perhaps more assurance is required in those specific areas. And the last one is the removal of international recruitment, and that reflects the fact that government changed policy back in July 2025, and that's around worker visas, and the risks surrounding that are now almost completely gone. So the suggestion and the recommendation is that that particular item is removed from the plan. So those are the recommendations to the changes to the plan. I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Councillor Mumford.
Hi, Jason.
Hi.
Yes, adult social care. Is it possible, will that come into this year's review coming out next year? Because I think adult social care is in a bit of a mess, put it mildly.
Yeah, so I mean, we'll shortly be having conversations with the Chief Executive and Councillor Marcus in terms of what next year's plan looks like, and at the meeting on the 31st of March, we'll be bringing a proposed draft plan to this committee, and that will feature, I'm sure, adult social care.
Right, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, because this plan is only up till April this year, isn't it? So
It is, that's correct, Chair.
It's up to
Yeah.
April. Yeah, and I think
Can I just come in with a quick comment? Clearly, as we've discussed in this meeting of the Scrutiny Committee in the past, internal audit don't have the level of expertise from an operational level in terms of adults and children's services. Therefore, when we come in to do the audits, it needs to be based more at a framework sort of expenditure level, looking at it from that sort of strategic perspective, as opposed to a detailed operational perspective, where clearly we have the relevant authorities coming in with expertise to do the external reviews.
Thank you. Councillor Dean?
Yeah, could you just explain a bit more about replacing financial systems with budget management and rent collection? Because as auditors, you're looking at the systems and the framework to manage these areas, aren't you? So was that, I don't really understand why we've had to change from financial systems to budget management and rent collection in particular. I know there is an issue with rent collection at the moment, but I don't think that's a failure in the system. That's just that we've got rent arrears.
Sure.
So can you just explain that to me?
Yeah, of course. So whereas we had financial systems in the plan this year and previous years, that would be ourselves looking, given a number of days, looking over the financial systems across the authority and doing DIP tests, sample tests in areas of payroll, creditors, debtors, etc. But that our resource would be spread over all of those financial systems and financial processes, where the conversation that we had a couple of weeks ago was, is that the approach that we should be taking this year, or are there any specific areas where you would like specific assurance? And I think given the challenge, the budget challenges that I think this council and probably every other council has in the land around budgets, I think both Russell and Councillor Marcus wanted assurance that budget management arrangements were strong and robust, both at the high level, but also at managers level, where managers should have responsibility for managing their budgets, monitoring their budgets and reporting as appropriate. And in terms of rent collection, I think that there are obviously rent arrears, but I think there was an assurance requirement that enough is being done to manage the level of rent and in appropriate timeframes.
Does that make sense, Councillor?
Yes, that makes sense. Yes, I understand that. That's fine. I suppose the only other thing to comment on is the deferral of the NHS integration to next year, which is understandable but rather disappointing.
Yeah,
to say.
I don't think that's
But,
an issue with the audit. I think it's
yeah.
it's more the pace of change. And from me, yeah, I mean, the budget management side came from the fact, like Jason said, we've got huge budget pressures, but we would have had to get, those budget pressures didn't just appear overnight, they have grown over time, and those budgets have been spent, so how and why is what we want to get to the bottom and see.
Yeah, and I suppose going back to what Councillor Mumford said, that we've known there are issues with adult services for some time, and yet we still seem to be drifting towards, disaster without seemingly any means to stop it. So, but anyway, that's probably not for this meeting.
No, I think that's probably for the end of the month. Are there any other questions on the audit for the rest of the year? Okay, brilliant. We have a proposal, two proposals that we note the progress report and endorse the proposed changes for this year. Proposed by Councillor Mumford, seconded by Councillor White. All those in favour? That's great. That is unanimous. Thank you very much. Jason.
Thank you, Chair. We don't have any other items on the agenda. Are you happy for us to leave?
Yes, feel free.
Okay. Thank you very much, everybody.
Yes.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Brilliant. And so the last item on the agenda, number 6, draft annual governance statement. Leah, back to you.
Chair, apologies, if you don't mind, in respect of item 3, the standing orders,
Yes.
I discussed with you at the pre-meeting, I don't think we covered it when we went to vote, that in my proposal in the paper, I'd erroneously put scheme of delegation instead of standing orders in the proposal.
You did.
So I just want to make sure, I mean, it's literally a technical thing. I accidentally wrote the wrong thing. That the proposer and seconder of that is clear on that point, and those who voted in favour. Purely technical, but just wanted to make the point.
I don't think I'm going to make an issue about this, no.
No, I'm
Nor
fine
me.
as well.
I think we're fine in the room. Thank you.
Thank you. So in respect of the draft annual governance statement, this came before committee in June last year in draft format. So the annual governance statement is part of a suite of documents that make up the council's statement of accounts. It covers the totality of services provided from the council in respect of a governance perspective. I set out to members back in June how we had self-assessed ourselves in section 2 of the annual governance statement against the principles of the SITFA guidance on delivering good governance in local government. And as required in section 4 of the annual governance statement, we set out what was identified as a significant governance issue that required action, and that was in respect of updating policies and procedures. So in June, I'd updated members the work that had been undertaken to date and the work planned in that respect. I set out in my report what I think is a positive in terms of further action that's been taken since June. And you'll see there in paragraph 10 of my report, I set out all of the policies and procedures that have been updated. There are numerous ones, lots that have come before full council for approval, but also a plethora of human resource policies, including the council's whistleblowing policy. They've all been updated. There is still some work left to do, so I do point out that there is still work ongoing in respect of updating our freedom of information and data protection policies. That's particularly in light of increased requests that the council is getting under those policies. The employees' code of conduct is still also under review. due to be completed in the next few months. And I also set out there the council scheme of delegation as opposed to the standing orders is also due to be reviewed in the first quarter or two of 26-27. I also set out there that it's noted that our members' code of conduct is due a review. That would have taken place had we not had confirmation from government following the public consultation on ethical standards that they will once again be issuing a mandated code. So we are awaiting that, which we are hopeful will come through at some point during 2026. I'm happy to take any questions.
Councillor Dean.
If it's a mandatory code of practice and we've been failing, what happens then? Anyway, that's just a trivial question. I suppose I would like some assurance that we don't, after reviewing all these policies, which some are quite overdue, that have some assurance that we have a system or systems in place to make sure that these policies are reviewed in a timely manner, rather than having to have a whole, dozens of them all at once.
Yeah, so that is something that will be picked up. Obviously, it's already been discussed earlier in today's meeting that the head of service, who was head of policy, has been a vacant post for some time. That post is currently advertised, and it will form part of the role of that individual to undertake regular reviews of policies, so similar doesn't happen again in the future.
Okay. I think that is fine for me. I was going to ask the same sort of question. Risks. Has any other members got any questions? I don't think we have. So we have a recommendation. Bear with me. To be approved as the final version and then to be signed by the Chief Exec and the Chairman. Do we have a proposer for that recommendation, please? Councillor Dean, seconded Councillor White. All those in favour? Brilliant. That is unanimous.
Great, thank you, members.
Thank you very much. And with that, I'll close the meeting. Thank you for your help, Leah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.